So I was fascinated this week as I was doing some reading in preparation for this to find out what animals sleep the most. Anybody know the answer to this? What animals sleep the most? I thought it was a sloth. It's not. It's a koala. A koala sleeps the most. They can sleep up to 22 hours in a day. Can you imagine? And I had a lot of fun finding the perfect koala picture to put up there to show you. But then I was like, okay, well, if they sleep the most and they can sleep up to 22 hours, what animal sleeps the least, right? I thought about that. I was like, what animal sleeps the least? Anybody have a guess on this? Giraffe. I thought it was fish. I was like, when does a fish sleep, right? But the actual answer is a seabird. Seabird, they can sleep as little as 40 minutes in a day, which is nuts, right? And then the more I read about this is like that birds actually sleep in like minute increments. They don't sleep 40 minutes and then they're good to go. It's like they'll sleep for a minute and then they wake up and they're good, right? So I wondered, after I started thinking about animals, I was like, well, what about teenagers, right? How much do you sleep? I wonder how you'd answer that, right? Because I know that some of you, like, you're really good at this, and you can sleep, like, who sleeps in past lunchtime on a Saturday? So, like, your whole small group? Okay, so that's perfect. All right, so I know that you can be famous for that, right? But I also know you like to stay up real late, so you can sleep a whole lot, but then you can also operate on a little sleep. Teenagers are a unique breed as well. And then I'm guessing that there's some of you that are probably like, you're very rigid and you sleep 8 hours and that's what you do and you go to bed at the same time, you wake up at the same time. What about rest? Because rest is different than sleep, all right? Rest is different. Rest is taking the mental and the emotional break that you need from the things in your life. And here's what I know is true, because I've talked to some of you about this and I've been around teenagers long enough to know that many of you struggle with this. You struggle with finding rest in your life because you are busy. You have a lot of things going on. You're involved in a lot of things. You feel pressure to be a part of a lot of things, including being here or things that you're involved in at school, and you're at school, all those type of things. Or maybe you have a little bit of FOMO where you're like, I don't know how to say no to stuff because I don't want to miss out. And so I'm just involved in all of this stuff. And I'm not talking about, do you find time to sleep at night? Because I know that you do that. But do you find time to rest? And so with all of that, I wonder if you've ever found yourself with this mental spot or even saying this out loud, my life is so busy. I've got so much going on. I'm involved in so many things. I just feel like my life is so busy. Maybe you don't feel that right now in this space, but maybe you have at different seasons in your life, or that this is coming. But I know that I have felt this, and I know that I've talked to students that just feel like their life is so busy. Now, being busy isn't wrong, but neglecting to find the appropriate rest in your life can be an issue. And here's why I think this matters. If you don't learn how to do this, you'll neglect this foundational element of who God is and in which you were created in his image. Think about this. Go back to the creation story. We're all familiar with this, right? God created the world. He made everything that there is. And in six days, and then what happened on the seventh day? He rested, right? Let's just read it together. In Genesis chapter 2, verses 2 and 3 says this. And by the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing, and so on the seventh day, he rested from all of his work. Then God blessed the seventh day, and he made it holy, because on it, he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. And so, if our God found it necessary to rest, could it be possible that we who are made in his image should also be created to rest? And so from this verse and from this story, the Jewish nation created the Sabbath, right? And so they created this idea of the Sabbath, that on every seventh day, they would rest from all the work that they did. That became a part of the 10 Commandments, right? But what happened is over the years, this turned into law, and it got really warped in a lot of different weird ways, where they would start telling you exactly what you could and what you couldn't do on the Sabbath so that you wouldn't break the Sabbath law. And so it got so out of control that they started counting the number of steps that you were allowed to take and just lists of things that you could or couldn't do. And so it got in a really weird space. And so Jesus actually had to say this at some point. He says, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And that reality comes from this truth is that we don't rest because it's the Sabbath, right? We rest because it's a benefit for us. And Jesus reaffirmed the purpose of the Sabbath several different times in the New Testament. It's an important practice that we need to learn how to put into our lives. So here's why I open and tell you all of this to start. It's because I think that you need to find rest in your life from the things that you're involved in. Me too. You need to find rest in your life from the things that you are involved in. I'm not talking about sleep at night. I'm talking about physically, mentally, and emotionally resting from your involvements, taking a break. Here's why this is important. Jesus, in the height of his ministry, as he was healing people, as he was doing miracles, as he was teaching, more and more people started to follow Jesus. More and more people were intrigued by him, right? At the height of his ministry, when he was very popular and people wanted to know what Jesus was about, and in the very few short years that Jesus had this window, these three and a half years that Jesus had the window to do ministry, there was a time in the midst of all this. Remember last week where we read the scripture, Jesus sent out the 72 and they went off and they did miracles and they healed people and all kinds of stuff. They came back to Jesus and they reported what they had done and they were all amazed by it. So in the midst of that, right after they come back and they report back to Jesus, this is what we read in Mark chapter 6. The apostles gathered around Jesus and they reported to him all that they had done and taught. Then, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, Jesus said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." And so they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. Jesus called his disciples to find rest from all of their work. And sometimes, I just bring this up because sometimes I feel like maybe we feel like we're exempt from these types of things, or that we live in a different time and we don't have time to rest. And yet in Jesus, we find that even his disciples, when they're going out and doing incredible things, when they return, he's like, let's get away and let's rest and let's break from all of this in order to be healthy. And so I want to offer you 3 very quick and brief thoughts tonight on the importance of rest, what you should focus on, and why this is important, and then offer you some suggestions on how you can do that. Here's the first one, is that we focus on rest to reflect, okay? When I got my first job out of college, my first ministry, I worked at a church, and I did junior high school, and college ministry, and it was the strangest thing because my day off from the week was on Monday, which is very weird, right? If you have a job, most people don't have Mondays off. Everybody works on Mondays. But we had Mondays off. That was our day off, and so everybody had the Monday off. And one of the reasons that they told me, because I was like, I'd much rather have Friday off, right? I'd much rather have Friday off. And they're like, no, everybody takes Monday off because we want you to rest from the weekend, right? So if you put all of your energy and all your passion, everything towards what happens on Sunday, we don't want you walking in on Monday and begin thinking, well, what's coming next Sunday? Because there's always another Sunday coming. There's always something else to plan and prepare for. So he said, when you come, we want you to take Monday off so you can break and reflect on what happened on the weekend before you come back in and start preparing for the next one. And it was a very beneficial thing as I started in ministry to think about that, because when you're able to rest, you're able to reflect. I mean, you guys can understand that, right? You're able to reflect. Reflection is was a way that the disciples could learn from what they were experiencing. Jesus pulled his disciples away, and every time that he did that, it tended to be a learning experience for them. Every time that he pulled them away, it wasn't so that they would just pause from ministry. It was because he was teaching them something. In the midst of this, I think he was teaching them how to reflect. It gives us time to talk to each other, to talk to God. And so in your life, I want you to think about resting as a chance for you personally to reflect on your spiritual life, yourself, the things that you're involved in. Just to take a little bit of reflection. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that because I don't think it's that hard to comprehend that when you rest, you can reflect. But here's the second one I have for you, is that we focus on rest to recharge. Now, this is one that you can probably understand the easiest, is that when you rest, you actually recharge. And so I want you to think about your phone for a second, right? Think about your phone because your phone is constantly working. I know that I don't even have mine on me. Your phone is constantly working. It's trying to collect, it's always keeping track of the time. It's trying to collect notifications. It's always fetching the weather, all those things, right? And so your phone is always working. And so I thought about this, and I knew this truth, but I looked this up on the internet, and here's what I found about your phone. There's a quote. It's going to hop up on the screen here. It says this: experts recommend shutting down your phone at least once a week, and after shutting it down, let it rest for a minute or two before it starts back up again. It went on. This is not on there, but he went on to write this: not only will this help enhance your phone's performance, it is also incredibly beneficial for your battery. Clearing your phone's cache and shutting down apps that are running in the background will reduce the strain of your battery, allowing it to last longer between charges. This will also help prolong its overall lifespan. Now, I know this is true, but this is crazy because I only shut my phone down if it has a problem. Anybody else like that? Like, I don't shut it down for like the purpose of recharging or like getting it back on track. It's like, oh, it's acting up, so maybe if I just shut it down, then it will fix everything, right? And oftentimes that's what happens is we shut the whole thing down, all the apps close, the phone restarts, and it kind of like recalibrates. I don't know how this works, okay? But it recalibrates itself, and when it turns back on, it's working again. But really, this shows me that I don't shut my phone down once a week. I don't give my phone a Sabbath, right? But maybe I should for the performance of it. And here's why I mention this to you, is that how much more should your body, soul, and mind have rest to recharge, to recalibrate, to shut some things down so that it can get everything back in order how it needs to be? If we're supposed to do it for our phones, could you do it for your body, your soul, and your mind? So maybe that could be something that you do. And I'm not just saying you do it because, I'm busy, I'm going to go to practice, so I'll shut my phone down so it can fix itself. No. Intentional times that you do this for the purpose of recharging. Can I tell you one way that I do this? So I don't know if you know this, but in your phones they have something, if you have an iPhone, they have something that's called downtime. Anybody familiar with what downtime is? And so you can go into the settings and set like downtime, which basically limits your access to apps during your set time. And so what I do is I have downtime set on my phone from Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I have it set up from 5 to 8 p.m. Anybody know why? That's when I'm with my family, okay? So that's when my kids come home. I'm with my wife. I'm with my kids. And so I shut all the apps except for like some of the necessary things that I need to like control weather or like watch the cameras in my house or something like that. But all the social media, all the other things, all the discretionary things, they are all limited. I can't, if I click on it, it says, you're not supposed to be on this app right now. And so I can't get it, even sports courses. So I take a break from 5 to 8 p.m. for all of those nights to just focus and be present and available with my family. That's just one way that I do this. I focus on resting. It's not like I sit there in silence. It's just I take a break from something that's always distracting me just to focus on something that's better. Now, when Jesus said to get some rest, he used this word, and here's what it means. It means to give rest or to give intermission from labor. That's really how I want you to think about it. It's a break from your work. When Jesus says, let's get away, come and get some rest, he meant get intermission from your labor. It's not quitting. It's not giving it up. It's not sacrificing it. It's an intermission. It's a quarter break. It's a halftime. It's a rest. I don't know if you've ever been to a hockey game before. I recently went to like a Fuel game, and it was a lot of fun. But one of the things I forgot, because I hadn't been to a hockey game for a long time, was that their intermissions are 20 minutes, right? I'm like, this is ridiculous, right? What am I supposed to do for 20 minutes? But then the guy I was with was like, well, it's because they work so hard when they're high. I mean, it's constant movement. I mean, their bodies need the rest, the 20-minute rest to come back out and perform at that level. And so I just start thinking about all these types of things of like, are we neglecting this in our own lives, this idea of rest? So we rest to reflect, we rest to recharge. Here's the last one. We focus on rest to re-engage. Resting should get you ready for what's next. That's really what it comes down to. To re-engage in the work that Jesus was inviting his disciples to participate in, he asks them to rest. He gives us the opportunity to stick with things longer even, and to find a fresh perspective. And so I found this true in my life, that when I can do this, when I can focus on resting, I can re-engage more purposely in what God has in front of me. So here's the question that I want to ask you as we think about this. What does rest look like in your life? Just pause for a second. I've been talking for a while. Pause for a second. Think about that. What does it look like in your life? What could it look like? Because for some of you, it could be shutting your phone down. For others of you, it may be, I need to say no to something. My life is filled, my schedule is too busy, filled with things. I need to say no to something. I want you to begin processing that, because in your groups tonight, you're going to talk about this. What does it actually look like in your life for you to experience rest? Is it going to require a day? And I spent a whole lot of time talking about why maybe it would be important that we start practicing a Sabbath, where you actually do take an entire day to break from all of these things that distract you and spend that day focusing on God and your relationship with him. That's what the Sabbath was. But I'm just asking you for to start small. Could it look like one day you say, man, well, I'll put my phone, one night I'm gonna put my phone aside and be present with my family, or to be present at home, or whatever it is. I want you to start thinking about that. What does it or could it look like for me to rest in my life? And here's why. When God created the world, he thought it was important enough that at the end of that, on the seventh day, he rested. God thought it was important enough when he gathered the nation of Israel together and said, hey, I need to summarize all this kind of stuff, and I'm going to give you 10 things to live on. And if you do these 10 things, you'll be in a right relationship with me. We call them the 10 Commandments. And when God did that, he included the Sabbath as a part of it. Honor and observe the Sabbath. Take a rest from your work. And Jesus, at the height of his ministry, took the time to say, we need to step away. We need to find some rest. And so Jesus did this as well. And so we focus on rest to connect with God. That's what I'm asking you to do, to focus on rest, to connect or to reconnect with God. And when you do this, I think that you'll experience a different level of a relationship with him.